picking up on chapter 2, right? We didn't get into chapter 2, we just kind of discussed chapter 1, if I remember correctly, of Deathly Hallows. We're just going to get as far as we can today. Really important chapter. Well, I think so at least. Hold on, make sure I'm thinking of the right one. Yeah. Harry's bleeding. Clutching his right hand and his left, swearing under his breath, he shouldered open his bedroom door, crunch of breaking china. He had trodden on a cup of cold tea that had been sitting on the floor outside his bedroom door. He looks around. This is in Memoriam. He looks around. Possibly the cup of tea was Dudley's idea of a clever booby trap. Keeping his bleeding hand elevated, Harry scraped the fragments of cup together in the other hand, with the other hand, and threw them into the already crammed bin just visible inside his bedroom door. Tramps across the bedroom, etc., etc. Okay? Skip a little bit. He's packing, digging around through his trunk, finds various things from not just the last year, but the last several years. What is Rowling doing there? What is she preparing us for? What's he getting prepared to do? To leave. Because this is kind of, commencement has two meanings. It means the end of one thing and the beginning of something. It's his commencement from Hogwarts and the Harry Potter series we've known, in his entrance into kind of a new way of living, a new style of life and such. And we get the long passage of Albus Dumbledore Remembered by Elphias Doge. Okay? You get to the end of that, and this is around page 18, 19 probably by this point, maybe even 20. You get to the end of In Memoriam, and it finishes with Dumbledore and discussion of Dumbledore and Grindelwald, 1945 and such. And we're told, Harry finished reading, but continued to gaze at the picture accompanying the obituary. Dumbledore, wearing his familiar kindly smile, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Next paragraph. He had thought he knew Dumbledore quite well. But ever since reading this obituary, he had been forced to recognize he had barely known him at all. Never once had he imagined Dumbledore's childhood or youth. It was as though he had sprung into being as Harry had known him, venerable and silver-haired and old. The idea of a teenage Dumbledore was simply odd. Okay? Why did Harry think he knew Dumbledore quite well?
Probably because all of those random little encounters that Harry picks up anytime they spent in the office and they debriefings.
Okay, a lot of random little encounters. Harry spent time in his office, the debriefings. From what we've been told in the books, what were almost all of those random encounters about, though?
Harry.
They weren't about Dumbledore. In terms of what we see, okay? Now, it might be fair to say, well, but in all of those encounters, Dumbledore's there too, and it can't be, Harry doing all the talking, so to speak. We know it's not from what we see. But it's really odd that Harry thought he knew Dumbledore quite well based upon those. Because what we see in the novels, how much does Dumbledore reveal about himself? Where is Dumbledore's let me use a popular literary critical kind of term. Where is Dumbledore's interiority? How much do we learn about Dumbledore's thought process? What he feels, what he thinks, what he believes? Almost nil, right? What would Dumbledore see if he looks in the mirror of Erised? He tells us. Wool socks. Lying, true, not sure. Okay? We don't see hardly any of that. Okay? We are, by the time we get to the end of this book, Dumbledore's going to be, kind of split open, almost autopsy-like. So, next paragraph. He had never thought to ask Dumbledore about his past. Well, if he'd never thought to do that, then go back to my original question. How does Harry thinks he knows Dumbledore, how did he put it? Quite well. Not just well, quite well. No doubt it would have felt strange, impertinent even. But after all, it had been common knowledge Dumbledore had taken part in that legendary duel, etc., etc. Why would it have felt strange and impertinent? Remember what happens when Frodo asks Gandalf, how long have you known all this? Gandalf kind of verbally slaps him down, I've known much that only the wise know. The little pipsqueak. How much have I known about the ring? Even then he doesn't tell Frodo everything. So, Frodo. Harry remembers asking Dumbledore what he sees when he looks in the mirror and remembers Dumbledore's response. Okay. And then we see another article. Dumbledore, the truth at last. And there's a long description, or not too long, a little intro about what the upcoming article is going to say. And Harry flips open the paper and reads it. We get to the end of that, around probably 24 or 25. Harry reached the bottom of the article, but continued to stare blankly at the page. Revulsion and fury rose in him like vomit. He balled up the newspaper, threw it with all his force at the wall, where it joined the rest of the rubbish heap around his overflowing bin. Okay? Why revulsion and fury? What did Rita's article say? Or imply? Or, excuse me, what did Rita Skeeter's interview, because this isn't even the article, suggest? Again, this comes after Harry's reading Elphias Doge's obituary. No, it finishes with an S. Doge's obituary is essentially hagiography. Hagiography is the writing of saints' lives. Okay? It's all about the holy ones, so to speak. What's the title of this book? The Deathly Hallows. Something that is hallowed is holy. It's sanctified. All right? That's what hallows means. Doge's obituary is hagiography. What's it doing to Dumbledore's memory? It's putting the nimbus or the halo around it. It's making Dumbledore saint-like. Somebody is going to say, look, I'm saint-like in a few moments. Okay? So if Doge's does that, what does Rita Skeeter's do?
The opposite. Well, maybe not quite the opposite, but
Rita's, for lack of a better word, because it's not really an obituary, okay? Rita's does what? Rita's fits into what modern genre of writing? Celebrity biography. One of the most famous writers of this kind of writing is a woman named Kitty Kelly. I think her last name is spelled just L-Y. It might be Kelley. She's written a number of I don't even know that she's still alive, actually. She's written a number of celebrity biographies. And anybody have any idea what these kind of biographies do? These are the kinds of things you'll see with, headlines, because they'll often be excerpted in papers and such. Headlines that will say, Frank Sinatra, the untold story. It's always the untold story part, okay? What do these biographers do? They give us the dirt. Because celebrities, before social media, celebrities tended to do what about their reputations? They managed them. They had their PR consultants, and they managed everything that was publicly available about those individuals. With social media, they still try to manage them, okay? But they often, do or say kind of too much. Well, these are long before YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, etc. Twitter, Mastodon now, whatever else there is out there. These are long before all of that kind of stuff. Okay? So what Rita Skeeter does is she, looks under the floorboards, so to speak, and pulls out all the dark material, so to speak, about Dumbledore. Why does that create in Harry revulsion and fury? I mean, Doge's thing ends with a comment about Dumbledore and Grindelwald. Rita Skeeter's thing ends, the interview at least, ends with information about Dumbledore and Grindelwald. Essentially saying, oh, I'm glad you mentioned Grindelwald. I'm afraid those who go dewy-eyed over Dumbledore's spectacular victory must brace themselves for a bombshell. Very dirty business indeed. And what does that do? It makes people want to go out and buy the article/book and read more. Okay? So, Harry finishes rereading some other stuff or thinking about it, and he yells, lies. He sits down hard on the bed. The broken bit of mirror danced away from him because he pulled the bit of mirror out of his trunk, set it on the bed, so he slammed himself down on the bed, and the mirror bounces. A flash of brightest blue. Harry froze, his cut fingers slipping on the jagged edge of the mirror again. That's how he cut his finger the first time. He had imagined it. He must have done. He glanced over his shoulder. Why? What did he think he imagined? A flash of brightest blue. Dumbledore's eyes. Okay. Chapter 3. Dursley's departing. Let's see here. Vernon decides not going to leave. Okay. Harry says, what? And so Harry spends a few pages to convince Vernon, you need to leave because Voldemort's coming after me. All right? Vernon says, but we've got these other people who are kind of watching us, protecting us. Okay? Harry finally gets around to round 33 or so, talking about stuff that Vernon's been watching on TV. These accidents aren't accidents, Harry says. The crashes, explosions, derailments, whatever else has happened since we last watched the news. People are disappearing and dying, and he's behind it. Voldemort. I've told you this over and over again. He kills muggles for fun. Even the fogs, they're caused by dementors. Dudley, there are more. Harry laughs. Okay? Vernon, all right, you made your point. Why? Once Dudley expresses fear, that's enough for Vernon. Okay? So, they go on. And Harry says, don't you understand? They will torture and kill you like they did my parents. Dudley, Dad, I'm going with these order people. Dudley, for the first time in your life, you're talking sense. Okay? Harry knew the battle was won. Okay? So, all the members of the order, not all, the members of the order who are escorting the Dursleys away and such, show up. And Doge is there, and Daedalus Diggle is there, and Hestia Jones is there. And Hestia says to Daedalus, around 35, 36, 37, perhaps we should wait outside in the hall. Harry, there's no need. In other words, this isn't going to be a long, tearful goodbye or anything. Okay? Vernon, well, this is goodbye then, boy. Shakes his hand. Petunia says, ready, Diddy? Vernon and Petunia start to make their way towards the door. And Dudley's kind of frozen on the spot. I don't understand. What don't you understand? Petunia says. This is pages 39 and 40. Why isn't he coming with us? He points to Harry. Vernon, what? Why isn't he coming too? Where are they going?
They're separate ways.
Okay, where are the Dursleys going?
They don't ever tell us.
Okay, but they're leaving their home and they're going into what? I guess is my question. The United States has a version of this. The federal government in protective custody, kind of witness, protection, right? Change identities, that kind of thing. What's Dudley's question really mean? Why isn't Harry coming to be protected with us also? Okay? He doesn't want to. You don't want to, right, boy? Harry, no, definitely not. There you are. Come on. He marches out of the room. Vernon, notice, goes out of the room. They hear the door open. Dudley still doesn't move. And Petunia has stopped moving. So she started to follow Vernon, but stops. Vernon looks back. Now what? Notice Vernon had gone through the doorway. He had mentally kind of checked out. But he notices nobody's behind him, so he walks back. He's standing at the doorway. What? Where's he going to go? Dudley asks. Petunia and Vernon look at each other. It was clear that Dudley was frightening them. Why?
You kind of showing signs of actually caring about Harry.
And they don't understand. They're like, what's gone into him? Hestia, surely you know where your nephew is going. Off with your lot. She's like, what? Off with some of our lot? She looks out at Harry. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter? She says. The danger you are in, the unique position you hold in the hearts of the anti-Voldemort movement, Notice, says the name. Not afraid to say the name. No, they don't. Harry, they think I'm a waste of space, actually. But I'm used to, I don't think you're a waste of space. Dudley interrupts Harry. They think I'm a waste of space. What is Harry doing on behalf of the Dursleys when he says that? Or, what is Harry, another way of putting it, but with a different answer, what is Harry taking away from the Dursleys when he says that?
Freedom of choice.
He's kind of denying their free will to offer their own opinion. He's putting words in their mouth. Kind of imperiousing, not literally, okay? And what does Dudley do? He asserts himself. He asserts his free will. I don't think you're a waste of space. If Harry had not seen Dudley's lips move, he might not have believed it. Notice, seeing is believing. As it was, he stared at Dudley for several seconds. Before accepting, it must have been his cousin who had spoken. For one thing, Dudley had turned red. Harry was embarrassed and astonished himself. Thanks, Dudley. How many times have we seen in the 7 novels up to this point, Harry say, thanks, Dudley?
Sarcastically, maybe a couple, but no.
I don't think he ever has. Dudley, you saved my life. So if you're a waste of space and you saved my life, what's that say about Dudley's life? Kind of also a waste of space? That's one way of reading that. Another is, if you're a waste of space and you saved my life, then I'm indebted to you. Not really. It was your soul the Dementor would have. So, Dudley, you could have stayed alive, just, without a soul. He looked curiously at his cousin. They had had virtually no contact during this summer or last, as Harry had come back to Privet Drive so briefly and kept to his room. It now dawned on Harry, notice, dawned on, the light arises, light bulb goes off, that the cup of cold tea in which he had trodden that morning might not have been a booby trap at all. Notice, Harry steps out the door, steps on the cup of tea, door opens this way. He steps out onto the tea, and he immediately assumes. Door opens the other way, that's why it's a booby trap. He immediately assumes Dudley's kind of playing a trick of sorts. He assumes the worst. Now, the idea comes to his mind, maybe it wasn't a booby trap. So if it wasn't a booby trap, what was it? Notice, Rowling's narrator doesn't fill in that blank. An offering? A gesture of kindness? Maybe it wasn't cold when it was placed there? Although rather touched, he was nevertheless quite relieved that Dudley appeared to have exhausted his ability to express his feelings. And Hermione says, Ron has the emotional range of a teaspoon. After opening his mouth once or twice more, Dudley subsided into scarlet-faced silence. Petunia, it's so sweet, Dudders. Lovely boy, saying thank you. Notice she interpreted Dudley's, you're not a waste of space, as thank you. Hestia, but he hasn't said that thank you at all. He only said he didn't think Harry was a waste of space. And then what does Harry do for us?
Dudley, that's like saying I love you.
He tells us his interpretation of what Dudley said. Or he tells us what Dudley's words mean to him. Coming from Dudley, that's like, I love you. Why is this not in the movie?
I don't know, but that's what drives me bonkers. Because I think it's Aunt Petunia that's more kind of showing more emotion than Dudley is.
In the movie?
Yeah.
See, I've not seen it. I won't see it. Because of this, and because of the end of the 8th one, which they also don't include. They might in the DVD release, I have no idea. Okay? Why does Harry say that's like saying, I love you? What does that do to the entire arc of Harry and Dudley's relationship? Book 1 until this. What does it show us about Dudley and, through Dudley, everyone else? Or the possibility for everyone else?
That as they are presented may not be as they actually are.
Okay, keep going.
There's another side of people that we often don't see, and I think this is Dudley's coming out.
Okay,
Presented through all the books of this mama and daddy's boy and then tough guy, where a lot of stuff is put on, but this seems more of a genuine.
okay. I think all that's right. I'm looking for one other thing. I got one spot right there. What does Hayward say about the Malfoys, book 2? And? Okay. Doesn't that kind of describe Dudley? 1, 2, 3, 4. What does Dudley do every opportunity he seemingly has?
Pick on Harry.
Beat up Harry. Why is Harry so anxious for Dudley and his gang to turn to him in book 5?
He kind of puts his rage into it.
Well, he does do that. What does he want to do? He wants a fight. He's like, come on. Okay? Part of that's because Voldemort's back and all that kind of stuff. Voldemort's kind of pulling his chain. So, coming from Dudley, that's like, I love you, said Harry, torn between annoyance and a desire to laugh. Why? Dudley say, I love you, get out of here. Annoyance? Why? Why would this annoy Harry?
Why now after all these years?
Possibly. What else? What does I love you almost always necessitate on the person who hears it? The person it is spoken to.
Another invocation of emotion, like you'll have an emotional response to it.
You reciprocate. I love you too. I mean, do you ever really want to tell somebody, not necessarily romantically, friendship love, filial love, I love you, and not hear them say anything in response? Because if they don't, that's kind of what? It's the proverbial cold shoulder, okay? You don't want to get that. Vernon, what are we going on that, So, Daedalus says we have to be off, okay? Dudley releases himself from Petunia's clutches, we're told, and he walks toward Harry, who had to repress an urge to threaten him, and Dudley puts his hand out. Blimey, Dudley, did the Dementors blow a different personality in you? Now think about that for a moment. What does it mean, a different personality? What has happened to Dudley? Change of heart. Literally. His heart has been changed. What language was used at the beginning of the book to talk about once pious Thickness, who's now the head of magical law enforcement, has done what his task is to do at the Ministry of Magic? What verb was used? Once Thickness has blanked the others. Converted. Dudley's been converted. Not to Jesus, not to Allah, not to Buddha, but it's a change of heart, which is literally what that idea of conversion means. Being changed from one thing into another. And guess what? We are back to the idea of the Philosopher's Stone in transformation. Dudley, don't know. See you, Harry. Will he? Now, if you read the cursed child, you know, it's implied other places later on. What does see you mean? Why not goodbye?
See you later is more open-ended.
Good see you later is open-ended. What did you say, Courtney?
It's not like saying goodbye forever, it means you're inferring that you're gonna see him.
Goodbye can mean forever. Okay? Yeah, said Harry. Look at Harry's response. The next thing he says. What does it mean? Maybe, we'll leave it open-ended. Take care. Big D. Why is he called Dudley Big D?
He's always eating.
Louder?
Because he's always eating.
Okay. Why else?
He's
That's what
kind
his
of.
gang called him.
It's what his gang calls him.
That's what
Does Dudley call himself Big D? Nope.
That's what the people who are close to him call him.
Petunia doesn't call him that. Vernon doesn't call him that.
The friends who are close to him specify.
His gang. What has Harry just done?
Inserted himself into that circle.
Or just show that he's a friend.
Harry is saying, okay, I see your, you know, how's he put it? I'm not a waste of space, aka I love you, and I raise you one. Almost like poker. But when Harry does it, Harry doesn't say I love you, and he doesn't say I don't think you're a waste of space either. He acknowledges Dudley on a level Dudley can understand. The big D, I think. Because what are all Dudley's friends really? Okay, in this sense, Dudley's like Voldemort. What do the Death Eaters think they are? They think they're Voldemort's friends. As Dumbledore says, Voldemort has no friends, which we're going to see at the end of the novel. Okay? But here's the difference. Dudley isn't evil, like Voldemort is. Dudley does care for people. His parents, obviously. We've seen Harry now, okay? So when Harry calls him Big D, he not only places himself in that circle of friends in Dudley's gang, so to speak, but it's also a way of saying, what about Dudley? That again, is language Dudley kind of understands. I don't mean Harry is doing this literally. What is Dudley to his gang? He's the leader, right? He's top dog. Harry's kind of playing along. He's asserting that about Dudley. But what's the whole purpose of this one-page scene? It's preparing us, this scene, I think, is preparing us for a scene at the very end, not the epilogue, the final climactic scene between Harry and Voldemort. Because what does this scene show us? Shows us Dudley's what? Again, it baffles my mind that it's not in the film. This is Dudley's redemption. This is, you know, as Courtney said, his change of heart, his conversion, his showing he's not evil. All right? Well, that's going to be paralleled, bookended if you want, at the end with Harry offering Voldemort what? Try for a little remorse. Because what will remorse, according to what we learned in the chapter on Horcruxes from Hermione's reading, what will remorse do? It'll restore his soul. Psalm 50 says, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. That psalm is called the Psalm of Contrition. It's what David wrote when he was found out about Bathsheba. Okay? It's all about how rotten and foul I am. But if I go to God fully contrite, God will not only say, forgiven, but will restore, make new the individual. Okay? This scene is key, and not just to this book. It's key to the entire arc. Because without this scene, and without the scene at the end, what are the books all about? It's these two scenes that really change the story arc. These two scenes remove this as the primary motivation. Right? What did Harry say when he and Dumbledore talked shortly before Dumbledore's death about, when Dumbledore's trying to get him to see the prophecy was meaningless? What would you want to do if you had never heard of the prophecy? I'd want to end him. Why? Because he thinks of his parents, he thinks of Cedric, he thinks of Sirius. He won't rest until he has. He thinks of all the other people Voldemort will kill, and apparently, from what we've heard, has been doing because of all the disappearances and such. But these two show Dumbledore's insistence on second chances is what's important. That no one is born evil. That everyone is capable of turning, of redemption. And we're going to see it also paralleled with whom? Draco. That's why the epilogue, in my opinion, that's why the epilogue is important. What do we see Draco do? He nods to Harry when he sees Harry on the platform. What's the nod? It's a mark of respect. Draco knows. 19 years later, he still knows. Like Dudley, he wouldn't be here if it weren't for Harry. Okay? The 7 Potters. So, Harry goes back up to his room. The various members of the Order show up. Harry's like, no way, I'm not doing it. You're not making a polyjuice potion. Nobody else is going to die for me. Famous last words, right? So, around 47 or so, Harry says, nope, Hermione, told you. If you think I'm going to let 6 people risk their lives, run, because it's the first time for all of us. This is different. Pretend to be me. Fred, none of us really want to do this, Harry. And Fred, notice, means that jokingly. I mean, imagine something went wrong and we look like you forever, So, they yank some of his hair out, and they do it. They make the polyjuice potion, and around 49, 50 maybe, is soon, we're told, Harry drops the hair into the mud-like liquid. And I think mud-like isn't only referring to consistency, it's referring to the color, okay? And as soon as it made contact, the potion began to froth and smoke, and then all at once it turned a clear, bright gold. Why? Bless you. What did Dumbledore tell Harry in that chapter on Horcruxes? No matter everything you've been through, all the pain, all the suffering, because your soul is pure. And she uses the image of gold. Okay? For that. Hermione, ooh, you look much tastier than Crabbe and Goyle. Ron's eyebrows, kind of like, what? Okay? So, Hagrid, a couple pages later, you're with me, Harry. Is that all right? We'll be on the bike. Brooms and thestrals can't take me weight, see? another marker that's darker. Book 1. How does Harry arrive at Privet Drive?
Motorcycle.
Does he have anything? No. Book 7. When Harry leaves Privet Drive, how does he arrive at his destination?
Well, kind of with Hagrid, kind of on the motorcycle.
Right, because that takes him. Does he leave? Notice he arrives with nothing. What's one of the first things Hagrid does when he takes him to Diagon Alley?
Gets him.
Buys him a pet.
Oh,
He gets Hedwig.
A companion.
You know what happens? It's the first one. Hedwig dies. What is Rowling showing us or preparing us for?
There's gonna be
Another
death.
Get ready, folks. This is a Shakespearean, Sophoclean tragedy. There's going to be bodies galore. I mean, she starts by killing his damn pet. Really. Just, cut the sucker out and stomp on it like a, country music song. Woke up, my eyes are watering this morning, literally, but there will probably be a point, when I talk about, I don't know, it won't be today because we won't get there. Dobby, everybody will be in tears, okay? So, what do we see happen? They get attacked, right? Almost immediately, okay? End of the chapter. Like the last couple of paragraphs, last 4 or 5. They get attacked by Voldemort, and we're told, as the pain from Harry's scar, because he hears Avada, as the pain from Harry's scar forced his eyes shut, his wand acted of its own accord. He felt it drag his hand, that means like this, okay, around like some great magnet, saw a spurt of golden fire through his half-closed eyelids, heard a crack and a scream of fury, the remaining Death Eater yelled, Voldemort screamed, "No!" Okay? Behind him comes another scream. Okay? Your wand, Selwyn, give me your wand. Whose wand? Cracked Malfoy's. So now Voldemort gets another wand, right? And then Voldemort vanished. Harry looked down, saw Hagrid spread-eagled on the ground below him. He pulled hard at the handlebars to avoid hitting him. Chapter 5, first words, fallen warrior. What do we assume? Hagrid's dead. Hagrid fell off the motorcycle. Harry sees him down below, spread-eagled on the ground. Every other time in the novels, someone is spread-eagled. What happened to them? They've been Avada Kedavra. Okay? Hagrid? Harry asks. Hagrid, talk to me. And then we find out, it's not Hagrid. She's not that cruel. Rowling. She is cruel. Okay? So, Harry talks with Ted Tonks, Tonks' father. Okay? Harry says they knew. The Death Eaters knew. All right? So I'm going to skip a bit. Hagrid reaches, up. He taps Harry on the shoulder when Hagrid asks, where's Hedrick? And Harry says, she got hit. Okay. Molly Weasley comes in. Let's see, we're 5 pages ahead. Around 67, 68. Thank goodness you're all right, she says, pulling Harry into a big hug. All right. We see Fred and George Lupin's there. Lupin asks, Harry, what creature did you first see in my office at Hogwarts? And Harry's like, what the? Why does he ask the question?
To make sure it's really Harry.
Have to make sure everybody's really who they are, okay? Someone says, again, they were betrayed. Harry, none of the order would have told Voldemort we were moving tonight. Voldemort only caught up with me towards the end. He didn't know which one I was in the beginning. If he'd been in on the plan, he'd have known from the start. I was the one with Hagrid. Lupin, how did he catch up with you? What happened? How did you escape? Okay, Harry explained. And then we're told, how did they know? What had you done? That is, Harry, you did something, they're implying, you did something that showed everyone that you are you. Remember, Dumbledore said Harry has a power that Voldemort does not understand, an uncommon skill. Okay? Harry, I saw Stan Shunpike. Tried to disarm him. Well, he doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, he's Imperious. Lupin looked aghast. This is page 70. Harry, the time for disarming is past. These people are trying to capture and kill you. At least stun if you aren't prepared to kill. Okay? How do you disarm? Okay? Why do you disarm your opponent, your enemy?
So they can no longer attack you.
Okay? What if your enemy's trying to kill you? Why just disarm? Why not kill in self-defense? Self-defense is legally justified. Okay? There's a branch of martial arts, I can never remember the name, and I always remember it before class, and then I come in and completely forget it. There's a branch of martial arts where everything you are taught to do is entirely, and I think most martial arts are actually kind of like this, not into martial arts at all. It is entirely defensive. Okay? And the purpose of that, in this one particular branch, the philosophy behind it is you are using your opponent's or enemy's abilities against him or her defensively to protect you, okay, partially. More importantly, you're doing it so that your enemy or opponent does not harm him or herself. This branch of martial arts has its origins in the very late 19th, early 20th centuries. I had a former student who's a practitioner. So its purpose is to do what? It's to stop your enemy combatant from harming himself and trying to harm you. All right? Just let your mind wrap around that. What happens when you kill someone in the wizarding world? You split your soul, right? We're told Dumbledore explains, you don't only split your soul by trying to make a Horcrux. You split your soul whenever you kill, or excuse me, Slughorn says that in explaining the Horcrux thing to Tom Riddle. So, if someone is trying to kill you, and you are aware that that individual is going to harm his or her soul in killing you, and you try to stop that person because you're protecting him or her, what does that really say? Notice that's not defensive per se. What are you showing for that person by attempting to do that? What are you demonstrating? Compassion. Love. Because your concern ultimately is for what? It's for the other. Okay? Back to the Lupin. Okay. If you don't want to disarm, fine. At least stun. Harry applies a little logic. We were hundreds of feet up. Stan's not himself. If I stunned him and he'd have fallen, he'd have died the same. Notice, it's a logical syllogism. He's 100 feet up. Stan isn't himself. If I stunned him, he'd have fallen. Ergo, death. The same as if I'd used Avada Kedavra. Expelliarmus saved me from Voldemort 2 years ago. Okay? Did Harry understand everything he now knows about Voldemort 2 years ago? No, he didn't. He didn't know anything about Horcruxes. He didn't know anything about Voldemort's soul. So he didn't understand what I just kind of suggested as a possibility, as a possible ethic, okay, in terms of Expelliarmus. He just used Expelliarmus. Why? Because we're going to be told. Yes, Harry, and a great number of Death Eaters witnessed that happening. Forgive me, it was a very unusual move. An uncommon move. I think Expelliarmus is Harry's uncommon skill. Nobody else seems to do it with the verve or panache, that Harry seemingly does. Go to the second to the last chapter. Under imminent threat of death. In other words, Harry, do what? Really, literally defend yourself. Lupin is suggesting Expelliarmus is not a good self-defensive spell. So you think I should have killed Stan Shunpike? Notice, Harry takes what Lupin suggests and he takes the idea to its logical conclusion without going through all the steps. He doesn't need to. If I did what you suggested, then really I should have just Avada Kedavra him. Why? It would be more merciful, right? If he stunned Stan Shunpike, then Stan would fall several hundred feet aware that the ground is coming. At least if he used Avada Kedavra, he'd have died immediately. Of course not, says Lupin. Okay. So what should Harry do? Okay, time out. Then what do you suggest, Remus? What's the third way? What's the third option? But the Death Eaters, frankly, most people, what does most people mean? Me, Moody, Tonks, Arthur, George, Bill, George, Fred, Bill, Charlie, can't say Percy because, dark side, would have expected you to attack back. See, stunning is an offensive spell. Expelliarmus is totally defensive. Impedimenta is an offensive. You're doing something to that person. Expelliarmus does what? It removes the other person's weapon. Whether the weapon is a knife, or a wand, or a gun, or a stick, or a stone. Because without that weapon, what can the individual do? Not a lot. But the Death Eaters seem to think it is your signature move. It's the thing that marks Harry Potter, as much as the lightning-shaped scar. I urge you not to let it become so. Lupin was making Harry feel idiotic. I won't blast people out of my way just because they're there, said Harry. That's Voldemort's job. Okay? Now I've got something written in my book. I won't tell you yet. I will in a moment. Who in the novels does blast people just because they're there? Who have we seen?
The Death Eaters.
Death Eaters, obviously, because they take joy in killing. Who else? I'm bored. Oh, look. Sniffles. When Harry goes into Snape's memory, what does he see?
He sees James and Sirius.
He sees James and Sirius. And why do they, quote unquote, blast Snape?
So
Because they're bored and he's there. Who else was there and saw it all happen? Lupin. Does Harry say, I'm not going to blast people out of the way like my father and Sirius did? No, I don't think he needs to. I think when he makes that comment, I think he kind of shuts off Lupin. That's Voldemort's job. In other words, people who do that, I think is also implied, they're like Voldemort. But, James and Sirius did what? They changed. They didn't grow up to become like Lucius Malfoy. Okay? Lupin's retort was lost. Does that mean Lupin had a retort and Harry didn't hear it? Or Lupin couldn't retort? Like Lupin was at a loss for words. Will George be okay? They talk about, George. Lupin raises his wand, points it at, Kingsley raises his wand, points it at Lupin's chest. Last words Albus Dumbledore spoke to either of us. Harry's the most hope we have. Trust him, etc., etc. Kingsley comes in. They talk about the people who have survived. We find out around 71 what has happened to George.
His ear's been cursed off by Snape.
He lost an ear. Snape's work, says Lupin. Okay? Lupin says Sectum Sempra was a specialty of Snape's. Remember, Harry tried to use it on Snape. Don't you use my spell on me, Okay? So, 71, 72, we hear Mrs. Weasley looked around and said, I can't make it grow back. That is, the ear, it's gone. Not when it's been removed by dark magic. But it could have been so much worse. He's alive. Yes, said Harry. Thank God. Okay? Several paragraphs later, we see Fred and George. And Mrs. Weasley asks George, how do you feel, Georgie? George reaches up to feel where his ear was. See, like, Fred, what's wrong with him? Is his mind affected? George, Saint-like, opening his eyes, looking up at his brother. Notice he doesn't look at his mother. He's like, come on, Fred, play with me. Come on, Fred. You see, I'm holy. Holy, Fred. Get it? Now, notice, rolling right, holy, holy. Okay? But this one is in italics. What's that mean? This is dialogue. What does italics mean in dialogue? I haven't the foggiest idea. Usually if you want to indicate via writing that something is being spelled out, what do? You do that. Okay? Because holy, H-O-L-Y, and H-O-L-E-Y sound exactly the same. Why does he say holy, H-O-L-Y, first? Or why does the narrator say that? Why is it typed that way first? Any of you heard of St. George, who famously fought, according to the early tradition of the church, a dragon? Okay. Who is also the patron saint of England, and who was a martyr. The Romans had him executed. Why? Because he had been a mighty military commander in the Roman imperial army until he became a Christian. All right? Why does she do this? Saint-like, holy George. Pathetic. With the whole wide world of ear-related humor before you, you go for holy? Give me an ear joke. The whole wide world of ear-related humor? I've never had a student go, well, there's the one where they can think of one quickly. Okay? Why saint-like? Why holy? What is Rowling preparing us for? Martyrs. What's a martyr?
A death that's kind of meant to be a public display of, you name it, like all the martyrs of the early church were kind of.
Yep.
Are you referring to? I'm sorry.
The word literally, the Greek word, is what gets translated into English, because that's the Greek root, essentially. Gets translated into English as witness. Yes?
Are you referring to when she made that one biblical mistake, you may call it, where when Dobby died, they did the grave and did rest in peace? Or like,
No, not that. And that's Moody, not Dobby, but we'll get to that later. It means witness. Like, you testify on behalf of something, or of something you believe in. In terms of the history of the church, martyrs were those who died. All right? That is, they took the final measure. How does Lincoln put it in the Gettysburg Address? The final full measure of devotion, so to speak. Okay? But you can be a martyr without actually dying. There are a lot of martyrs of the church who lost their hands, lost their tongues, lost their eyes, etc. Okay? She's preparing us that, why did this happen to George? Who did he appear as? Harry. In other words, when Harry said, I don't want you, possibly dying for me, there's going to be people who will be disfigured and people who will die for him. Who's already one who, in a sense, has been disfigured? Bill. Bit by Fenrir? Okay. So, they go on talking. Bill shows up. A few pages later, Mrs. Weasley. Thank God. Thank God. Okay? And Bill tells them Mad Eye's dead. Harry. Harry felt as though something inside him was falling through the earth, leaving him forever. What? Notice, juxtapose that. Falling through the earth, leaving him forever, with death is but crossing the world as friends do the seas. They live in one another still. Does Harry feel like Mad Eye's really inside him? What did Dumbledore tell Harry at the end of book 3 about his father? Prongs Road again tonight. Harry's like, well, I'm kind of stupid. I thought I saw my dad. Oh, Harry, do you think that those who die ever really truly leave us? No, you had great need for your father, so your father showed up. Bunch of balderdash. That, I think, my opinion, could be entirely wrong, is rolling, trying to tell herself, Mom's not really dead. Or, Mom's dead, but she's still around. I still have the warm fuzzies every now and then. Notice, Luna never says that. Luna doesn't feel that. Luna says what? I'll see her again. Okay? Harry here thinks and feels what? Leaving him forever. No joining together again, no coming back. Okay? So, around 70, what would that be? 79, 80? They're still talking. They're talking about Mad Eye. And Tonks says, you know who acted exactly as Mad Eye expected him to. Mad Eye said he'd expect the real Harry to be with the toughest, most skilled Aurors. So who did Voldemort come for first?
The toughest Aurors on brooms.
Which would be the toughest? The guy missing part of his face, you know. So, Fleur then says, that doesn't explain how they knew we were leaving in the first place. There must be somebody who let it slip. A couple paragraphs below that. Harry, no. He doesn't say, teachers, it's been implied. Professors, it's been implied. Because of the whole student success, mantra. If a student says something that's just wrong, we shouldn't say, like I've been known to say to a variety of students, no, that's wrong. We should say, well, that's a good idea, possibly, maybe. Harry, no! If somebody made a mistake and let something slip, I know they didn't mean to do it. It's not their fault. And now, speaking a little louder than he usually would have spoken. Why? Harry means this. This is serious, Harry. We've got to trust each other. I trust all of you. I don't think anyone in this room would ever sell me to Voldemort. More silence. Harry drinks more fire whiskey. Fred, well said, Harry. George, yeah, ear. Get it? Ear. Lupin has a funny look on his face. Harry, you think I'm a fool. Notice, Harry doesn't say, you don't think I'm right. You think I'm a fool. A fool means what? I don't mean the biblical idea.
Completely crazy.
Yeah, completely crazy. Just totally wrong. No, I think you're like James, who would have regarded it as the height of dishonor to mistrust his friends. Okay? What else does that mean, though? And James would still be alive if he had mistrusted his friends. The only problem, however, is how you live mistrusting your friends. What do your friends become if you mistrust them?
Not really friends.
So, what do you become? Take that one step farther. What did you say again?
No friends.
No friends. You become like Voldemort. You have to have faith in other people. That's what trust is. Harry knew what Lupin is getting at. His father had been betrayed by his best friend, or by his friend. Okay? So, Lupin says there's work to do. Bill says, I'll come. They're like, what? We just got Harry here. We're all safe now. What work? Mad Eye's body. We need to Why? Why do they need to recover Mad Eye's body? What did Harry and Dumbledore talk about in Book 6? Dumbledore brought it up as they were getting ready to go to, Book 6. Getting ready to go to Slughorn's. In Fairy E. right? Where the dark wizards do what to corpses?
They manipulate them.
They reanimate them. They don't bring them back to life. They make them into, popular word, zombies. Okay? Mrs. Weed, get it? Bill, wait, not unless you'd rather the Death Eaters took it. Do you really want Death Eaters turning Mad Eye into a zombie? Why else? Because something about the body is sacred. And another reason, you don't leave your own behind. You know, leave no one behind. It's a motto of one of the forces. Okay. Why else you don't want the Death Eaters to take it? Okay, zombie, what else? Desecration. Why did Eomer speak up at the Tower of Orthanc? What did he remind Theoden of when Saruman offered his second plea to Theoden? Remember Hama, hacked into pieces at Helm's Deep. Remember Theodred at the fords, because they hacked his body too. Okay? So, everybody else gets ready. They're doing a variety of things. George says something about his ear. Hold on a second. Let's see here. Harry says, I've got to leave. I can't stay here. You're all in danger. And so they each kind of come up, yeah, but what about George? I lost my ear for you. Okay? Harry, I know. He bellows out. He felt beleaguered and blackmailed, but did they think he did not know what they had done for him? Didn't they understand that it was for precisely that reason that he wanted to go now, before they had to suffer any more on his behalf? Notice, others suffering and dying for Harry. I never made this connection until literally just now. What is that similar to? What is Mad Eye's death similar to? Isn't it kind of like not Molly, her name will come in a moment, Lily's? He died, why? So Harry could live. George lost his ear, so Harry could live. Hedwig died, so Harry could live. Okay? So they talk about Harry's wand. Hagrid, just wait till it gets out. You defeated him. Harry, it wasn't me. Wand acted of its own accord. Good grief. And Hermione says, well, you know, Harry, that's impossible. Wands don't do that. Harry, no. Bike was falling, couldn't have told you where Voldemort was. And now he says, but like he's holding his wand like this. I don't know about you, but if you want to grip something, having your palm open is not the way to do it. He says, my wand spun in my hand. I'm just pointing out language. The wand spun in his hand means this, because of that preposition in. If he had said, the wand spun my hand, then it would be that. Okay? Could be that it's just bad writing. Entirely possible. He says, and found him and shot a spell at him, and it wasn't even a spell I recognized. I've never made gold flames appear before. Okay? So we could go back to the original page and look at it again, but then there's going to be something else later on. Let me see if I have a page written down in the American edition. Second page of Godric's Hollow. There's going to be something similar. Okay? Nope, wrong page, 286. I have to learn to read. Oh yeah, First page of chapter 18, The Life and Lives of Albus Dumbledore. Okay? Where Harry's going to be thinking about the wand again, and Dumbledore would know the answer. All right? Mr. Weasley. Well, you know, Harry, when you're in a pressured situation, sometimes you can produce magic you've never even dreamed of. Small children. And Harry's like, shut the hell up. Why? What are none of them doing?
They're all trying to find some way to justify it, but there's not really, that's not the best word in this case, but they're trying to justify something that's.
They're trying to explain away something Harry saw. They're trying to say, Harry, you didn't see what you thought you saw. Okay? He knows they didn't believe him. A couple paragraphs down. Dumbledore would have believed him. Dumbledore would have known how and why Harry's wand had acted independently, because Dumbledore always knew the answers, or had the answers. He had known about wands, had explained to Harry the strange connection that existed between his wand and Voldemort's. But Dumbledore, and this is the first time Harry, first time with all these names, Harry does this. But Dumbledore, like Mad Eye, like Sirius, like his parents, like his poor owl, what's he just done? He's done a tabulation of death. All were gone where Harry could never talk to them again. Again, they're gone forever. He feels the burning in his throat, and boom, he has this vision. Okay, and there's Voldemort, angry as all get out. Okay, talking about Lucius's wand, chapter 6, Ghoul in the Pajamas, which we're going to skip an awful lot of. All right, go to page 102. Hermione pulls out a book on how to make Horcruxes, a book that has instructions, secrets of the darkest art. Okay, and Hermione says, the more I've read about them, the more horrible they seem, and the less I can believe that he actually made 6, that is Voldemort. It warns in this book how unstable you make the rest of your soul by ripping it. And that's just by making one Horcrux. Isn't there any way, Ron says, of putting yourself back together like Humpty Dumpty? What does Ron mean by that? Isn't there any way of making yourself whole again? Of repairing yourself? Or, I don't know, let's use Gandalf's language. Of finding your cure. Hermione, yes. Notice also, by the way, what Ron's question implies. Implies, not suggests. Okay? Because there's 2 different meanings. Suggest means you want somebody to get this implication. Implies just means it's just one idea kind of among many. That if you've made a Horcrux, you can fix yourself. Or, another way, maybe once you've made a Horcrux, you want to repair yourself. The third option, maybe Voldemort can be fixed. So, Hermione, yes, with a hollow smile. How can a smile be hollow? It's a smile with
No meaning behind it.
Yeah, no real meaning behind it. No warmth, no affection. But it would be excruciatingly painful. Why? Harry asks. How do you do it? Remorse. Have mercy on Psalm 51 or 50. Have mercy on me, O God. Have mercy. According to your great mercy, according to the multitude of your tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. That psalm begins. Remorse, says Hermione. You've got to really feel what you've done. That is, you got to feel it in your bones. There's a footnote. Apparently, the pain of it can destroy you. I can't see Voldemort attempting it somehow, can you? Why is contrition, remorsefulness, painful?
I mean, you were admitting that you were wrong, and people generally don't like to admit.
You're admitting that you are wrong. Look at almost every. I'm gonna go out here and this might be exaggerated, but I don't think it is. At almost every public apology by a celebrity, politician, sport athlete, whatever. How are almost all of those apologies constructed? They say, something is not sitting right in my glasses. They say something to the effect of, I am sorry, what's the next word? If what? If I offended you. What does the if I offended you mean?
I mean, don't actually have, but I feel they need to say it anyway, just in the slight chance that
Yep.
you did.
Did you need to leave?
I got it figured out.
Oh, okay.
That's how you know them.
Okay. Yeah, it's a conditional. In other words, I'm not really sorry. Why? Because I don't really think I did anything bad. But if you are offended, in other words, if you're a snowflake, if you can't stand tough things being said, blah, 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 whatever, then okay. Ooh, I made you feel a boo-boo. That's what all of those non-apologies are. Those are not real apologies. They're not real remorse. Because what is real remorse? I am sorry for offending you. Period. I'm sorry for hurting you. I'm sorry for, or just, I'm sorry. And then what comes next? If you've ever read Hamlet, if you haven't, you ought to, or watch my lectures. Hamlet at the very end, Hamlet and another character, just before they die, exchange forgiveness. They're responsible for each other's deaths. They exchange forgiveness so that the other person can die absolved of sin. Christ says, those who sins you forgive, they are forgiven. Period. It's not if, just forgiven. So Hamlet and Laertes say, let not my death be on your head. And Laertes says, let not my or my father's death be on your head. Because Hamlet killed Laertes and his father. And Hamlet says, heaven make thee free of it. In terms of Laertes' killing of Hamlet. That is what follows the idea of apology, forgiveness. I'm sorry. What does, again, just like I love you, kind of demands a response. What is I'm sorry? What should be the response? I forgive you. Or maybe they're both wrong. I'm sorry too. And then you both say, forgive me. Okay? Remorse. Why? It's painful because it involves what you said. What do you have to do to show remorse? You acknowledge you are in the wrong. Where have we seen Voldemort show that kind of, what is required to say, I was wrong? Yes, what else?
Grief. Well, no.
Humility. It says, I don't know everything. Okay. We'll stop there. Did not get nearly as far as I needed to. But we have 2 more days for those who want to show up for the final day. The day of the final, which I sent it out last night. Tuesday, December 6th, 8 o'clock, I believe it is. I'll be posting the second Deathly Hallow quiz probably within a day or two. And I'll post the final exam for those who want to go ahead and do it.
So the final exam is over all the Harry Potter?
It's over all the Harry Potter books / quizzes.
Okay.
Yep. Which you should be able to look at all of those to go through. Some questions might show up that were, many questions that were on quizzes will show up. Some might be slightly reworded. All right, have a very